Could I have a number 7 with a soft taco and a bottle of water?
8971 at the second window.
Thanks. All right, Taco Bell on a scooter. What's up, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. Kind of surprised by this video. Out of everything here, I've been getting the most questions on where the Ruckus has been. So let's break this guy out of here and go for a little cruise today. Got this thing in working order and kind of give you guys a little recap on what's been going on with it. Alright, so this is my Honda Ruckus. I bought this thing new back in 21, I believe. These things are relatively cheap. I forget exactly what I paid for it, but I think it was like maybe $2,500, maybe $3,000 with tax and tags and stuff like that. But yeah, it is just a 49cc scooter from Honda, and kind of sounds like a lawnmower now after everything that I've done to it. It is slow, and when you're driving it around in rural areas, you really have to kind of pick and choose where you're going to ride, because this thing is not very fast. Even though I did a bunch of modifications to it, it's still not quite fast enough to give me confidence to ride on roads that are like above 45 miles per hour. Now, if you caught the few videos that I've made on this thing, I kind of did a little bit of an introduction, just talking about the scooter, how I've always wanted one. The aftermarket support for these scooters is kind of insane. Excuse me. And I originally bought the scooter just because I've always wanted one from when I was like a teenager, and I finally was able to buy one. And it's just so cool. The styling of it, it's just fun to kind of putt around town. And as you can see, I'm doing 30 miles an hour here. If I open it up a little bit more, can do 35, can do about 40 miles an hour. It's loud. It takes me a while to get there, but it's not too terrible. Oh, I might even be speeding right here. Speed limit's 40, so in this part of town, it's pretty good to ride this thing in. The closer I get to downtown Denver, the lower the speed limit goes. So if you live in a city, this thing would be perfect to kind of scoot around on, go to work, run some errands, and it's just a whole lot of fun. So I did the intro video on this bike, and then I did a stage 1 go fast kit, and then a stage 2, just kind of doing little things here and there to make this thing perform just a little bit better, especially since I'm in high altitude. I bet if I took this thing down to sea level, it would be way faster than it feels right now, because right now it really feels like a dog. The thing is slow when we're up here at like 5,800 feet in elevation or whatever it is. There's a little bit thinner. So let's pull off somewhere here. Ooh, we could get lunch at Taco Bell. I'm not opposed to that idea. Could I have a number 7 with a soft taco and a bottle of water?
We don't have any bottled waters.
Could I do a Baja Blast then?
8971 at the second window.
Thanks. All right, Taco Bell on a scooter. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's see if we can do this here. Where can I find some shade? Oh, this'll do. So the first round of modifications with this thing, I believe, started with a CDI update. So that's basically allowing me to kind of like unlock the scooter and make it go a little bit faster, rev a little bit higher. And it's really not safe to do that without an aftermarket tachometer because I don't have a tach on here, but it's been fine. It doesn't sound like it's ringing out too hard unless I'm like really pushing it down a hill. And then there's really just like a laundry list of items that I've done to this thing. I did a decompression breathing tube. That way it kind of runs a little bit nicer. I did do a high-speed variator from Polini. I also changed the weights in here. I don't even remember what weights I'm currently running right now, but I think they're like 5.5 grams. And that's some stuff that you can play with to get better acceleration and sometimes higher top speed as well. I also installed an intake that ended up actually rubbing on my rear tire right back here, so I had to cut that and shorten it. And it is now rubbing on the actual frame of the scooter, so I should really kind of cut that bracket and drill the hole a little bit lower. That way this thing can mount a little bit lower, because right now I feel like it's putting a little bit of stress on the carburetor, so I should lower that, and that way I'm not going to scrape any more paint off of my frame like you can kind of see here. I also rejetted the carb, which is giving it some more fuel. It has more air with that velocity stack over there. It does have a filter in there, and that opened this thing up quite a lot more, as well as the Yoshimura carbon fiber exhaust, which is really loud but looks cool. And I mean, this is kind of like what I envisioned as a completed project. And then there's all the aesthetic stuff that I did. I added some rear foot pegs, some forward foot pegs as well, which kind of lets you stretch out a little bit. I did the dwarf lower seat frame. That way this thing feels a lot nicer when you're riding it. With these drag bars up here, the original handlebars are kind of huge and sweeping on this thing, so this is just a nice cleaner look. I also cut off the tabs that were previously holding the big turn signals, and I wired in some new LED turn signals down here. I repainted that front bracket here, and I'm keeping the stock lights because this is just such a traditional Ruckus look. I did some of the fancy gas tank covers down here with the matching sides, so just all gloss black there. And then back here I also cut off that big ugly rear taillight and turn signal assembly, and then I actually paint matched it, but it wasn't quite right, so I put some just carbon fiber vinyl wrap over there, which I scratched earlier when I was working on this turtleback taillight. So this is an integrated taillight with turn signals out on the outside. It works great now, but I was kind of fighting with some electrical issues with this scooter, which is why you guys haven't seen it in a while. Let me eat my quesadilla quick and then we'll get back on the road. All right. So after making some of those modification videos on the Ruckus, I had kind of a lot of people were watching those videos, surprisingly. I didn't think that many people would be into Ruckuses, but they definitely have a cult following. There's like the hardo motorcycle guys who are like, oh, scooters are lame. And I mean, I get it. It's a 49cc scooter. Not a whole lot of fun can be had on them. It's kind of like a Miata in the sports car world. I think a better comparison would be like the Honda Grom to the Miata, because there's true car enthusiasts who like all cars no matter kind of what they are, and a lot of people respect the Miata even though it's kind of slow and small and it's just fun to drive. The Grom definitely has a bigger following than the Ruckuses, but I feel like these are kind of in that same category too, because it's fun to just kind of cruise around in towns like this on, and the aftermarket support is there where you can do so much to these scooters, and it's really just like a fun project, and that is essentially why I ended up modifying this thing the way that I did. So there were a lot of people who were on board with everything that I was doing, people who love the Ruckuses, and they're like, hell yeah, thanks for showing us everything that you're doing. But then there's the motorcycle crowd who doesn't understand it, and they're like, that is such a waste of money. So was all of this a waste of money? If you're looking at it from the performance perspective and you're like, yeah, I want to make this thing faster. My goal was kind of to make this thing do about 50 miles an hour, and I'm really struggling with the elevation. From a line up a hill here, you can tell it's not super fast, but right there I'm doing about 25 miles an hour. I spent a bunch of money on aesthetic parts and performance parts on this thing, probably equaling the price of the scooter. I probably have already put maybe $2,000 into this thing, and that's over the span of a bunch of months with the lights and the performance stuff, like the little plating down here, the different foot pegs. So a lot of people watch those videos and they're like, dude, that's such a waste of money. Why would you put that kind of money into a scooter when it's not going to be fast? Why don't you get a real motorcycle? And my answer to that is, I have real motorcycles. I have a Honda Grom. I have a Suron if I want to drive off-road and do some like dirt bike type of stuff. And then my bigger bike right now, I still have my Husky 701 Supermoto. So I'm no stranger to motorcycles. I've been riding motorcycles for a long time, and the reason I was putting money into this was really just for fun. I like tinkering and working on things, and that was the whole reason for me spending money and doing all of these modifications that you guys have seen to the Ruckus. So was it a waste of money? My honest answer would be yeah. I mean, everything that I've done to this didn't really make this scooter much better than it was stock. It's still really smooth. I could have went the GY6 route and did like a 150 or a 171cc motor and really make this thing a lot faster, but I really didn't want to make this thing fast to a point where it would like compete with the Grom, because I have all of those bases covered already. So was it a waste from the performance perspective? Yeah, I think it kind of was a waste of money, but I had fun doing it, and that was the whole reason for me doing those things. It is a little bit faster, but from the average outsider's perspective, it was a waste of money. It still only does like 40, 45 miles an hour. It's just a slow scooter. The benefits to it though are it was really fun to do. It's still fun to ride. Insurance is very, very cheap. The scooter itself is very cheap as well. For the most part, you do not need a motorcycle license to ride one of these things, so I could let my friends who don't have their certification actually ride this thing around. I can legally park it on sidewalks when I'm in the city, and this is obviously going to vary depending on what state you live in, but it's kind of like there are no rules just because of like how innocent these things are. Now for the final thing, the fix that I was working on. One of the reasons why you guys haven't seen me riding this thing much, it has been raining quite a lot here in Colorado, so we got a nice day today. But outside of that, I was having electric start issues and then turn signal issues, so I went through all sorts of troubleshooting, wiring the taillight and the front turns, and I found out that the electronics on this thing are very bare bones, and there's really only like 3 or 4 fuses. One of those fuses is shared with the turn signals and the electric start, so replace that fuse and the electric start worked. Otherwise, I would have had to kickstart this thing, which is how I was riding it the few times that I would ride it. And then once I got the electric start working, I was messing around with the turns. I was able to get the man-in-the-box turtle head wired up properly now, so this thing is working, but it was not flashing properly. So I tried everything, different wiring combinations and all sorts of stuff, and it turns out somewhere in the wiring I must have did something that kind of faulted the electronic flasher, which is hiding right up here in this box. So after a bunch of days of troubleshooting and everything, I replaced that electronic flasher, and now everything is working, turn signals work great, and electric start works. So that's the Ruckus. That's kind of the update. I don't really have much else to tell you guys outside of that. But if you have any questions, you can check back through and watch my other Ruckus videos when I was kind of doing how-tos on doing all the modifications that we talked about. I do not have any Ruckus friends in this area to scoot around with, so maybe I'll find some of you out there. I should probably get the Grom out. I don't really have any updates for you guys there. And I should definitely get the Husky out and do a little bit further of a trip, because that thing only has like 1,200 miles on it. I really have not been riding much in the past like 2 years or so now, so I guess let me know what you guys want to see next and I will make that happen. If you like these little motovlog type videos, let me know. Drop a like, leave a comment down below, and if you're new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every single week. As always, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.